Hey guys, welcome back to another video, a Friday the Top 13 video. Took a little break for the holidays, but now I'm back, and this list here we're going to be doing my top 13 films of the year 2000. So we are almost done this little decade, series of mine, and I might continue afterwards doing, going back to like 61, 71, and so forth once I'm done doing the 2020 list. But for now, we're doing the top 13 films of the year 2000. Yes, so check it out. All right, for number 13, we've got a not a very loved entry in a very popular series, but I think it's fun enough to make my last spot on the list here. And that is Scream number 3. The third one came out that year. And in this one, Sydney is in her 20s. She's working from home. She's working as one of those crisis counselors, like from one of those toll-free numbers that you can call. And eventually, she is discovered by the new killer, and there's a rash of murders on the set of the new Stab 3 film coming out. So they're working together. A lot of the original cast is back, and they try to figure out who the killer is, as they do in Scream movies. And in this one, it's probably my least favorite of the series, but it's still pretty fun. The crappy thing about this one is that they try really hard to rank up the ridiculous comedy, and it doesn't really work for me. But still Scream. It's still Ghostface. It's a pretty decent slasher. Moving on to number 12. Number 12 is a really fun little film. It was a first time watch for me when I was looking up some films that came out this year. And I found it online to stream. I forget where it was, maybe Tubi TV. I'm not entirely sure, but I really enjoyed this one. It's called Psycho Beach Party, and in this film, it has a 50s 60s style. It's a comedy, and it's set in Malibu on the beach, where a young girl and her friends are just hanging out on the beach, and while her friends are they're enjoying watching the boys playing in the water and surfing. Our protagonist really wants to learn how to do the sport, right? So she actually approaches them, and they accept her into their group, teach her how to surf and stuff. She's having a lot of fun, but she develops the multiple personality disorder, where she starts switching personalities, and even worse than that, she starts having blackouts. And during these episodes, there's a rash of murders on the beach in that area, and she suspects that she might be the killer, but it's unknown, and it's not revealed until the end uh, who's the killer or if she's the killer, etc. So check it out. It's a fantastic little comedy. I like it a lot, and they really get that 50s, like 60s style of comedy of filmmaking pat down. So it was really cool to watch that. So check it out, Psycho Beach Party. All right, number 11 is a film called Shadow of the Vampire. So, in this film, this is a fictionalized telling of the making of the 1920s film Nosferatu, in which you have a film crew, and the director hires an actual vampire to play the part of Count Orlok, of course. And obviously, as you can imagine, not everything goes to plan, and there are some murders on the set, some scary happenings, etc. We've got Willem Dafoe in the role of the vampire, and John Malkovich playing the eccentric director, and I think both those performances are very solid. I really enjoyed Shadow of the Vampire. Check it out if you can. In my number 10 spot, we've got another slasher. This one's called Cherry Falls. It's a film that takes place in the town of Cherry Falls. We've got high school students that become prey to a sadistic female killer, and we get a little bit of backstory on who they think the killer is. But it really is. It focuses on the twist of the famous horror trope that virgins always survive. In this one, the killer is targeting virgins, so the high school students are working very hard to try to lose their virginity in order to survive this mass killing, right? So very entertaining, very wacky, and it all culminates to a insane third act that's just a lot of fun. It's a film called Cherry Falls. Check it out. All right, my number 9 is a Japanese ghost story, and it's one that most people are very familiar with. It's called Ju-on the Curse number 2. So the second one at my number 9 spot. And in this film, just like the first Curse, it's a series of vignettes, kind of like an anthology, but it's all set in the same world, and you've got characters that you know. Yeah, so they just share the same world, right? It's different events, all associated to the same house, the same ghost, etc. So, both films, the Curse films, have 6 vignettes in them, 6 different little kind of side stories. But the second one shares 2 of the same ones with the first one, which is kind of a bummer, and it's why it's so low on this list. But the other stuff is great. It all kind of expands the lore and the story of the cursed house. You've got one vignette that's about the police that have gotten involved, and it expands on the kid on the bicycle from the first one, and it all leads up to the final vignette, which serves as a teaser for their next film, which was Ju-on the Grudge. And so I think they're all fun to watch. I really like that type of horror. I think Japanese like ghost stories are super creepy, so automatically I just like those films. So it was bound to make my list. Really enjoy those. So yeah, my number 9, Ju-on the Curse 2. Okay, number 8 is another Japanese ghost story. In this one, it's the third in a series, and also serves as a prequel to the famed Ringu film. This is Ringu Zero, and in this film, it actually follows the character Sadako, the ghost from the previous films, and in this one, she's a teenager undergoing some therapy, and she's advised to take up a hobby in order maybe to help her with her mental state. I guess she's been suffering from some nightmares, that kind of thing. So she joins this theater troupe where she kind of rises in the ranks. It does very well for herself, really drawing the ire of the other actors who are jealous, of course, and or some of them. And she also falls in love with one of the sound technicians. So there's a love story there, a little bit of romance, and but during this, there are some mysterious deaths on set, and leading the actors to believe that Sadako might have been involved in those killings. And of course, during the actual production, the theater show, there's another death, and then the cast members have had enough and decide to kill her, all leading up to a very, very tragic ending that serves as the origins of the evil Sadako. We kind of get a glimpse of how that happened, and one that I really enjoy. It's really interesting. Not the best in the series, of course. The first one I adore, but Ringu Zero, not bad. Check it out. All right, number 7, we have another Japanese horror film, and it's called Long Dream, and it explores just that, a very long nightmare. So this film takes place in a hospital in which they admit a new patient who has some memory loss issues, but more importantly, it tries to diagnose whatever illness he has, and that makes him have these very vivid nightmares. And when he's dreaming these nightmares, they feel like they're extremely long. So when he wakes up the next morning, he thinks he's lived through a few years in this this very vivid nightmare. And every night that he falls asleep, the nightmares feel like they're getting longer. So one night he thinks he's been in this nightmare for a couple of years. The next night when he goes to bed, he feels like he's been living in a nightmare for the last decade, right? So the duration, he just has the nightmares for the one night, but they feel like they're getting longer just in his head, right? Up to a point where he feels like he's lived a lifetime, but then wakes up and then it's just the next day, right? So very interesting concept, very hard to explain. I've tried to record this a couple of times now. I get tongue tied and it's just weird. It's hard to explain this story. It's a very short film though. It's under an hour. It's like 50 something minutes, but I love the special effects in this film. Obviously, this illness takes a physical toll on the people that suffer from it, and they begin to mutate and that kind of stuff. And the imagery is very, very nightmarish. So if you get the chance to check it out, I was able to watch this one on YouTube. I found it full length on there. So check it out. It's called Long Dream. All right, time for number 6. When you feel like there are not a lot of good horror films coming out in a particular year, you have to look abroad. That's right, we've got another Japanese horror film. So this one's called Versus. It recently had an Arrow video release. I don't own it yet, but I rented it online through a streaming service. I watched it online, and I gotta say this is a really cool, really macho kind of horror film. It's a martial arts film as well. So it's a film about there's these two prisoners that escape a kind of a prisoner transport, and they walk through this forest, and this forest is kind of enchanted. It has a gate to hell in it somewhere, and whoever dies in these woods become living dead zombies. And it's about a lot more than that. So these two guys met up with a kind of these criminals, this crime organization, whatever, Yakuza, maybe, I'm not sure. They give out that vibe though. They're like fancy with their suits and stuff. But so they meet up with them, and then they turn on these prisoners, and so our protagonist goes off into the woods with a woman that the crime group had held hostage. So they escape, go into the woods, and they're followed by these criminals. So it's really about people dying in the woods, coming back to life as zombies, the protagonist trying to survive, and it's very martial artsy. You get the one-on-one fights, Street Fighter kind of fights going on, as well as those mobs of zombies that they're kind of mowing down. So it's very, very fun. Interesting story. It gets a little weird at the end there. It kind of lost me in the third act. It got a little too weird, but up to that point, I thought it was really, really cool kind of film. So check that out. It's called Versus. All right, going into my top 5 horror films of the year 2000. This one will be a more recognizable film, and it's one that I own. So here it is right here. Final Destination, yeah. So, if you're not familiar with that story, it is about a teenager who is about to go off on a trip on a plane with a bunch of friends, and he in the airport he gets this vision that the plane is going to explode in midair, killing everyone on board. So he kind of causes a disturbance in the airport, so he misses the plane along with some more of his colleagues, and has predicted the plane explodes in the air, killing everybody on board. So, but he had that vision. He was able to prevent some of the deaths, and so they were able to cheat death, which is never a good idea because death always has its way. And then everyone who actually didn't get to go on board start having these supernatural deaths, supernatural attacks, and death wants you to die, right? So it's a story about that, and it's our protagonist's struggles against death itself. So a very unique concept right there, and it's loads of fun for a 2000 film. If you haven't been able to tell yet, I'm not a big fan of the American horror films this year in particular, so not very good. But this one's a good one. It's called Final Destination. Earlier in the list, I talked about a sequel to a Japanese horror film, The Curse 2. So this next one here is the first one, Ju-on the Curse, the first one. So it came out the same exact year. And it's another set of 6 vignettes. This is the original one, so I think the first one is far superior to the sequel. And it's the introduction. If you haven't seen like the very short stories, which are kind of loosely similar to the full length features, this is kind of your introduction to the big Grudge films, right? So you've got a lot of the iconic scenery, or like Kayako crawling down the stairs, the kid with the meow. That's all from this film right here, The Curse. So yeah, 6 different vignettes, all exploring the idea of this haunted, cursed house, and the ghostly inhabitants that hunt you down if you've been in contact with this house or whatever. So I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember really enjoying it. So Ju-on the Curse, number 1. All right, number 3 is a great, fantastic film. My 1 through 3 are films that are just top notch right there. Number 3, fantastic film. I'll let you guess its country of origin. I'll give you a second. It's Japanese. It's Japanese. All right, this film is called Battle Royale. So if you've ever wondered the origins of that style of video game where everyone's killing each other on an island and the map gets smaller and smaller, and it's a fight to the last survivor, like that Fortnite kind of deal, that's from this film. And any film that involves classmates or colleagues being put together and they try to kill each other off until there's one left, that's from this, like the Hunger Games. I'm pretty sure, 90% sure, this is the first one that did that. Anyway, so it's about these high school students who are brought to this island. I think they were gassed, so they all fall asleep on a bus. They think they're taking a field trip somewhere, but they're kind of abducted, put on this island where they have to kill each other off until there's one left, kind of this sadistic game. And it mainly follows 3 characters in particular, but you get a lot of side stories with all of the other students. There's a bunch of them. I think there's like 40 or 50 of them starting off, and then obviously there's 3 nights, so they're spending 3 nights on the island, and their numbers just drop night to night. And like in Fortnite, the map gets smaller. There are zones on the island that if you're in them at a particular time, you die instantly, and because they're wearing these collars and they explode their necks out or whatever. So very brutal. It's pretty gory. There's got some gory scenes. It's a lot of fun, a lot of action. It's kind of an action horror film, and it's one that I very enjoy immensely. This is this is a DVD copy actually of the collection. We've got the theatrical, the director's cut, and there's a sequel in here, and I think the 4th disc is just a bonus feature disc. And I enjoy this so much, I ordered the Blu-ray, so it's coming in the mail. So a little upgrade to that one. That's number 3, Battle Royale. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is American. It's that was my last Japanese one. So yeah, moving on to North American films now. And of course, this one has American in the title. It's American Psycho. I imagine this is number 1 on most people's lists. A film about a sadistic killer. Or is he? Patrick Bateman, a successful businessman who's in mergers and acquisitions for a company called, was it Pierce and Pierce or Pearson and Pearson? I forget. But so he is a bloodthirsty individual who until recently has been able to suppress his desire to kill people. Not really. He'll kill prostitutes during the night, but he feels more and more bloodthirsty as the film progresses, and kind of loses his mind near the end there. But there's a twist at the end that kind of makes you rethink the entire film, and yeah, it's hard to explain, and I would ruin it if I did try to explain it. So I don't really want to do that. I'll let you enjoy it for the first time if you haven't seen it before. If you have seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there are a lot of iconic scenes, a lot of fantastic dialogue. It's a dialogue-heavy film, and it's just entertaining throughout. So that's American Psycho. Finally, number one. What can be better than American Psycho? Well, if you know me, you know I am a sucker for werewolf films, and I am a sucker for coming of age dramas or comedies. And if you mash those two genres together, you get Ginger Snaps. This is the Scream Factory release of that right there. And in this film, it explores these two siblings who they're kind of weird. They're goth girls, but they love the kind of darker arts. They're into photography, but they make themselves look like they're murder victims, that kind of stuff. So they're out one night, and one of them is attacked by a werewolf, is bitten, and becomes a lycanthrope. Lycanthrope. I can't say that word. Lycanthrope, I think. And she becomes she starts to change into a werewolf. Her behavior starts to change, and so they kind of race against time, trying to find a cure for this thing, while Ginger starts to snap, let's say. So it's kind of all a play on becoming an adult. It's kind of that's kind of the theme of the film, where the two siblings kind of are become a little more separate, you know, breaking of that relationship because of the condition that Ginger has taken on. So very interesting, very cool film, a lot of cool imagery, and the acting is fantastic. Katharine Isabelle is amazing, and the only thing is that the werewolf doesn't look that great. I wish the werewolf looked better, but it's really not about that. It's really more about that transition into the werewolf, the coming to terms with the fact that she's changing, just like you would as a teenager turning into an adult, right? It's kind of that theme. So that's why I love that film. Ginger Snaps, my number one for the year 2000. What's your favorite? Which ones did I miss? Let me know, and I will hit you up with another list in the next couple weeks. I'm looking at doing top 13 for 2010. I'm also going to be doing a ranking films for a couple of different franchises that I recently finished. Again, not for the first time, but just the bigger franchises, right? So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time. See you later.